Hi, everybody. This is Sharon Spurlock, Senior Director of Family Education, and I'm here to talk to you about accessing Social Security. I think Social Security is one of the more daunting applications to apply for a family member with a disability. And frankly, I struggle even after all these years to understand all the nuances about what needs to happen. But on the front end, I think there's some pretty simple steps you can follow to prepare yourself so that you're able to get the application in and move forward and get those benefits for yourself or your family member. So I'm going to start off using this navigation map that's available to you through the St. Louis ARC Family Navigation Team, or you can find on the IDD Gateway Resource Guide. If you're not familiar with that, this QR code will lead you to a really great resource guide that's online, that's kept up to date, that will be able to take you through many, many types of services and supports available in the St. Louis region. So the beginning part of this form clarifies the difference between SSI versus SSDI. And I'm going to go right to left in this case because I think most of the people we work with are applying for the SSI on this side. SSDI, or Social Security Disability Insurance, is the type of resource that you access if you've got an employment history and you become disabled, or if you are a person with a disability who has a parent with an employment history who passes away. So if I have cognitive disability and my parent passes away, I can apply to get a Social Security disability insurance benefit that from the money my parent paid into the Social Security system. It's a set amount of money and it's not tied to my income. So it's a much more straightforward kind of a process to receive this insurance, but it doesn't it has a very specific flow that typically is triggered by the death of a parent. On the left is our supplemental security income, SSI, and that's mostly what families come to us asking for assistance to get. And this is your basic financial support that people with disabilities and elders can get if they are on a limited income and have limited resources. And this is a federally funded program that has federal standards for a variety of things like income, caps on what you can keep in your bank account, and all those kinds of things. So, one of the things I like to tell people, if I'm only going to tell you one thing, it's going to be that when you're applying for supplemental security income or SSI, once a person turns 18, even if they have an adjudicated decision maker like a guardian, they are still considered a household of one unless they themselves are married and have children. So it's a big mistake to file Social Security and put all of the family income into the application. You are looking at your family member as the only person's information who's on that form. And typically, if families do that, then you're able to move forward with the process pretty successfully. So that is my number one tip about pursuing Social Security SSI. So to apply, in Missouri, actually everywhere, it's best to apply online if you can, because you can set up your own account. That account allows you to save information so you can fill out the application over more than one sitting. You also have then an opportunity to find out where your application is in process through your own account and get information and messages that way. If you don't have an opportunity to do this online, the best thing to do is schedule an appointment at your local Social Security office and then prepare for that appointment by bringing the right documentation with you. If you need assistance about how to do this, you can also check in with one of our navigators at any time. It mentions down here that you can get information about a payee. I'll just mention briefly what that means. With Social Security, you can designate that the money go directly to the person who's applying, or you can identify a representative payee who is going to be the person who's responsible to receive the money and delegate the money. So For someone that struggles with their financial capacity, it might be necessary to establish a payee. It's a pretty straightforward process to do that, and it's always retractable. So maybe you're supporting somebody who's 18, and by the time they're 25, they have the capacity to get their own SSI money and put it into their own bank account and pay their bills. So you can always pull back from being a payee and give that person the control of their own money at that point. Again, Navigator is going to be able to give you the step-by-step on that. So over here on the right is a very basic list of steps to apply for Social Security. There's two different processes. One's for children under 18 and one is for adults. And that's because when you are a dependent with parents, they do check your financial information. So you still could be eligible for Social Security benefits, but it's probably only likely if you are in a low income situation as a family. So for adults, there's a separate checklist that you can click here to find. There's also QR codes to get you to those checklists if you'd rather just look at them directly. See what you need to have available to you. Be prepared. If you have all the information you need, the form should not take you more than about an hour at most to fill out, but gathering the information may take you a little longer. Once you're finished, if you're doing it online, you can just click submit and submit it to Social Security, or you can mail it into them. And then, as I said, to check the application, you can go back and check your account to make sure that it's been submitted and where it is, or you can call this 800 number to find out where you are in the process. Eventually, you'll get written notification in the mail that it has been processed. In the state of Missouri, it can take several months. And when I say several, I think the current rate right now is between 3 and 6 months. And I think that's being generous to find out whether or not your application has been approved. So once you start this, don't expect to get the money right away. But there is a part in the form where you can request 3 months of back pay. And so that might be something you want to pursue, knowing that it's going to be a delayed process. I'm now going to move to this form. I'm going to show you the adult form of checklist, but the children's form is easily accessible, as I said. So this checklist is a really easy way to prepare for doing the Social Security application, whether you're going to do it with us at a paper party or you're going to sit at home and do it, or both. These are the pieces of information you're going to need. So in order to set up the account, you've got to have the things that you need to identify questions about who you are for verification of the account. So they're probably going to want your mobile phone information, possibly a credit card, some W-2 information, or other tax forms. And it's could be beneficial to just open up the form and see what it looks like, and then kind of gather all these pieces. I like to look at the form with the checklist, but unfortunately, it's the type of form that you can't move through until you answer all the questions. So that's why we're providing you with this information in advance. So you've got to have a date and a place of birth. Pretty straightforward, that you don't need to have like copies of the birth certificate attached or anything. If you were born outside the United States, you need to identify the birth country and have a permanent resident card number. These things here, marriage, children, military service, this is all related to the person filing. So the person with a disability. So you can just put NA if they've never been married, or divorced if they've never had children or never served in the military. Otherwise, you're going to need some of this information here that they've identified. This is where we really get into the key information for people, is that there's employer details for the current year and prior 2 years about employment. So let's say you're applying for a 30-year-old, you're going to need to be able to go back at least 2 years and maybe a full 3 years to look at their total earnings. So that might be in a tax document if they filed taxes the last few years. You may have access to pay stubs. Their employer may be able to do a printout of year-to-date earnings. Lots of ways to gather that information, but that'll be critical because the two things they're really checking here is income and available financial resources, and then disability. So that's really key. If you're self-employed, they're going to want to know the same type of information, what type of business and how much money you made from it. They're going to want to know what's in the bank account. So having your account type and number available and a routing number, because they're going to want to check and see what do you have in that bank account. And that's one of the reasons that we provide you resources about how to set up ABLE accounts or special needs trusts so that you've got an alternate way to save money for really important things without impacting these benefits. And then somebody else that can be contacted who might be able to assist with understanding more about the medical condition that's caused you to create the claim and help with your claim. So disability down here about thinking about medical conditions. They're going to want to know, and this is, I believe, Appendix C of the application. You're going to need to identify doctors who can corroborate the disability. So having your doctor's name, address, phone number, if you've got a date of when they've done an IQ test or another type of test that might have determined disability, those are things that they're going to want to have information about. They may want to know about voc rehab services or some other kind of medical record that clarifies that you have a disability that limits your ability to have full-time employment or employment that fully meets your financial needs. I believe that the current standard for Social Security is that you can make up to about $40,000 a year before you lose Social Security. And I think that's good to know because I think sometimes people assume it's a much lower number. What's tricky with Social Security is it's not a very high number of high amount of money you can keep in your bank account, but you can earn enough money to pay your monthly bills and earn up to a reasonable amount of money before your Social Security is jeopardized. And if you earn $40,000 in $1 in a given year and lose your Social Security, if down the road you're not able to sustain that amount of income, you can go back and reapply and reopen your Social Security. So I think a lot of times people are afraid that they aren't able to work a certain number of hours or make a certain amount of money. That's not as black and white as I think sometimes that comes out to be. So always double check that because the government wants you to work. They've built in lots of incentives so that when you go to work, you are encouraged to work. And usually that means protecting your Social Security, reducing it in small amounts as you gain more and more employment. So lots of ways to protect it. Plus there's tax incentives. As I said, you're going to need all this medical stuff. They're going to want to know about your job history. They're going to want to know where you've worked over the last 2, 3, 4 years, up to 15 years if you've got a newer conditions that's impacting your work, and what type of jobs you did, maybe the typical number of hours you did. So having that available, and then education and training, not only the highest grade in school that was completed, but what kind of special education services you received or any specialized job training and trade school information. So that's a little summary about Social Security. I hope that helps you get ready to do your own paperwork to pursue Social Security or to come in and join us at a paper party to work on a Social Security document. Whichever way you go, I hope that this helps you be successful. We want everybody to have access to the benefits they're eligible for. So thanks for joining me today.